Welcome to this episode of Q&A with Liturgy Man. I'm Taylor Burton-Edwards, Liturgy Man with Discipleship Ministries of the United Methodist Church. I am your apportionment dollars at work to help you strengthen worship and the understanding of worship where you are. Today I thought I would do an episode on a question that I've gotten over the years as I was working at Discipleship Ministries and that I continue to see in my work at InfoServe, and that is about candles in worship. I get questions about the Christ candle and Advent candles and memorial candles and all kinds of other candles, the two candles that are sometimes on the Lord's table in some settings. People wanting to know what are the official uses of all of those things. And the answer that I always give is this one. There is only one candle that actually has theological, historical, and liturgical significance in the life of the Christian church. And that one candle is the Paschal Candle. You can find the Paschal Candle in a variety of forms. I didn't bring an example here for this video, but you can go online and look up Paschal Candle and see a good number of good examples of those online. This is a candle that is lit for the first time in each liturgical year at the great vigil of Easter or at the first service of Easter that you hold in your congregation, and that thereafter is used throughout the entire season of Easter through the day of Pentecost, or in some traditions through the day of Ascension. It is continues to be placed by the baptismal font throughout the year and is lit as well for all occasions of baptism and all occasions of funerals that may take place in the life of your church. This is the one candle that actually has historical, liturgical, and theological pedigree. It points to the new life and new light that has been made known to the universe through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. There are no other candles that have that kind of pedigree. So let's talk about some of these other candles you may have heard of and where they actually came from. First, let's talk about the use of candles generally in worship and why candles were used in worship. Basic reason candles became used in worship was because they were a convenient way to provide light to spaces that were dark. The reason you would have candles on or near the Lord's table had nothing to do with the two natures of Christ or any of those other kinds of issues, the seven spirits for a sevenfold candelabra, none of that stuff. It was to provide enough light so that the presider could see the liturgy and respond appropriately at the Lord's table as the presider was responding and leading in the Great Thanksgiving or in other parts of the liturgy. This is why in some traditions you might see a torch or a candle that's taken, or maybe more than one candle that's taken along with the gospel book as the gospel reading is brought forward, so that in what might be a fairly dark space, the person who's reading the gospel has enough light to read it. So the primary reason for candles in worship across all Christian history has been to provide light. In an era where most of our churches are much better lit, we have electric lighting, or we meet in the day when there's plenty of light, candles may not be the best way to do that. What about the Advent wreath and the Christ candle that appears in the Advent wreath? Well, let's remember that the Advent wreath itself was a sort of an import into public worship beginning in the late 19th century from what had been private home devotional practices around the 4 weeks of Advent. And it was when it migrated from home use into church use in the late 19th, early 20th century that you first start seeing this additional candle added in the middle to extend the use of that for throughout Christmas season as well. That candle sometimes got called the Christ candle. But it doesn't have any previous warrant for use in the church at any other time. And again, it's a fairly new thing and doesn't have a long historical pedigree behind it. What about the candle that sometimes appears in a red glass jar? Maybe it's even just a light, the so-called eternal light. That is something that has been promoted by church supply houses to Protestant congregations, basically as a way of marketing a product that already had existed in Roman Catholic congregations that would be placed on or near where the reserved sacrament is placed, so the people who want to come in and adore the elements would be able to do that. As Protestants, that's not a practice that we have. So the warrant for having an eternal light in your sanctuary may not be all that good. So bottom line is there's only one candle with actually historical, liturgical, and theological warrant in the life of the church. That's the Paschal Candle that points to the centrality of the resurrection of Christ throughout our entire life of the Christian year. It is used particularly on occasions of baptism, all throughout Easter season, and occasions of services of death and resurrection. Hope this has been helpful. Remember, you can always contact me, worship@liturgyfolks.com, through our UMC Worship Facebook group, or just drop a line on this page. And perhaps your question or comment will become the basis for a future episode of Q&A with Liturgy Man. May the peace of Christ be always with you.